Are we on? Thank you. Minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of November have been laid on the table. Will you sign them as a true record? Can I sign them as true? Thank you. Any apologies for absence, please?
We have received apologies from Councillor Stephen Reynolds and Councillor Keith Webster.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest?
None received.
Thank you. Questions? Looking for the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello again. The Council has made various claims regarding funding of the East Street scheme over the past decade, though the terms of possible funding and the design of the scheme have never been finalised. We hear that another such claim is being made, and if the due diligence process has been completed and a firm agreement has indeed been reached, then as a public project there should be no honest reason not to publicise the funding institution concerned and the terms of the funding. So my question is there a firm signed commitment of funding, and who is supplying that funding? Thank you.
Thank you. There is not a signed commitment of funding, but Crest Nicholson are in discussion with a funder, the details of which are commercially sensitive. Item number 5 is the Executive Forward Programme. Colleagues, are there any additions or amendments, or can I take that as agreed? Thank you. Item 6, the Budget Management Report. Councillor Potts.
Leader, thank you. The report, which starts at page 15 of your agenda, colleagues, just some key headlines for you. The General Fund is showing a projected net underspend of over £468,000, mainly due to improved income position against budget. The General Fund Capital Programme looks to be largely on track at this stage, although I am aware of some delivery issues that are currently being addressed. Farnham Maltings have asked if we can reschedule this year's £35,000 capital programme budget into next year to support their funding bid for works to the Great Hall. There are a number of proposals included in the report this evening which are put forward for a decision. The estimated additional planning income in this year has been partly used to fund short-term legal and environmental health staff, and there's a proposal in this report to use a further £30,000 for legal and specialist advice to support with planning appeals. The table on page 16 is showing that Waverley Training Services is estimated to generate a larger surplus than expected, and the report includes a proposal to use up to £15,000 of this surplus to undertake a detailed review of Waverley Training Services this financial year. Paragraph 2.9 proposes a minor change to the staffing in the accountancy team following the departure of a long-standing member of staff. Capacity will be increased and the proposal can be contained within the existing budget. Following the decision of Age UK Waverley not to continue using the ex-Rowland House accommodation, which is attached to the Rowleys Community Centre in Cranley, there is a request to spend capital funds to separate the two areas so that Waverley can move forward with an alternative use for this part of the building. I'm very pleased that we've been able to bring this before members, as this will ensure the two buildings are independent and also ensure the long-term sustainability of Rowleys, and endorses further Waverley's commitment to Rowleys, which again I think we would all like to emphasise to the users of Rowleys this evening. Finally, there's a recommendation to make some changes to the schedule of the HRA properties listed to have new windows and doors, and some proposals for major damp and structural works which are detailed in the exempt annexes. The recommendations are on page 21. There is also one additional item I would like to report this evening, following a review of the resources within the election team, and I think Mrs. McQuillan has the wording that will show the recommendation, Leader.
If I can read that out, please. It's agreed to recommend to the Council to make permanent the post of Temporary Elections Assistant because of the likely ongoing increase in workload resulting from the implementation of individual electoral registration and the combined elections to be held in May 2015, with the additional cost of £9,000 in 2015-16 being met from government grant for individual elector registration.
Leader, thank you. That is 8 recommendations that I recommend before my executive colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, any comment? Thank you. The 8th recommendation is as read, and this is to make the team there more robust. As the member of staff there is temporary and could walk away, and with a number of elections next year leave us very short-staffed. So that is the 8th recommendation. So now 8 recommendations. Are they agreed? Thank you. Number 7 is Treasury performance. Councillor Potts.
Would help if I turn the microphone on. Leader, thank you. Moving to the report at page 33 of your agenda. The report covers the Treasury management activity and performance to date. It confirms basically that all investments fit within the approved strategy and that the interest generated is slightly ahead of budget this year. Members are asked to note this report and endorse the approach to Treasury activity described in the report. Thank you, Leader.
Colleagues, any comments? 2 recommendations. Are they agreed? Item 8 is the setting of the council tax base and business rate for 2015-16, which is an administrative matter. Councillor Potts.
Leader, yes, it is indeed an administrative matter, but a very important one. It's a very technical report, so I won't go into detail, but we have to approve these estimates ahead of the budget setting process for next year. The good news is that the figures are showing an increase in both the business rate and the council tax base, which will help us to balance our budgets next year, which is obviously very good news for Waverley. And this is also good news for both the town and parish councils as well, as nearly all of them have seen their council tax bases increase. There are 2 recommendations which can be found on page 44. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. 2 recommendations. Are they agreed? Item 9, colleagues, is the senior management restructuring 1 year on, and the report is set out on page 49 and 50. You will be aware that we restructured this time last year and introduced it from the start of January. The report sets out that our objectives have been achieved and are ongoing, and that we have achieved the £132,000 a year saving that we intended. Any comments, please? Thank you. That's to note. Is that noted? Thank you. 10, the Waverley Initiative on pages 51 and 52. This was a company set up within the council to assist us when the funding for council-owned properties was somewhat different, and we were paying lots of money into the government to be spent elsewhere, and because of the changing in the system, that no longer applies. The company has never traded, and there is no likelihood of it doing so. There has to be annual returns despite it being dormant. It takes officers time, and the councillors that are directors don't want to be. So the recommendation is that this be wound up. Any comments? 2 recommendations. Are they agreed? Agreed. Item 11 is the enforcement policy for regulatory services. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Leader. This proposal sets forth a common-sense approach to the inspection and enforcement of a wide range of activities subject to regulation, and you'll find them listed under item 3 on page 54. The proposal reflects current legislation, guidance and best practice, but it also recognises the fact that blind, unimaginative enforcement, which takes little account of immediate circumstances, can only impose unnecessary and much resented burdens on business and individuals. The approach recommended here is one aimed at securing cheerful compliance rather than sullen acquiescence. Where individuals or businesses are not meeting regulatory requirements, then a phased and escalating process will be followed in order to secure compliance, starting with friendly advice, moving up through admonishment and formal warnings, and, only when such measures have failed, to move towards prosecution. In all cases, individual circumstances will be taken into account, and the Council approach will be both measured and appropriate. I believe the Council officers have developed a very pragmatic enforcement policy and have no hesitation in commending it to the Executive.
Thank you. Colleagues, any remarks, please? One recommendation. Is that agreed? 12 is the Waverley Borough Council review of street trading. Councillor O'Neill.
This is essentially a clearing up exercise that reviews Waverley Borough Council's street trading policy in the light of experience since its introduction in 2009. There have been no legislative changes affecting the policy since that time, but the opportunity was taken for review by the Licensing and Regulatory Committee and to solicit views from third parties by a consultation process. The revised policy has also attached to it an up-to-date listing of streets in which trading is not permitted or which can be consented to trade within in specific circumstances. Both the officers and the licensing committee have done valuable work on this low-profile but essential item, and they deserve our appreciation. And I have no hesitation in commending this proposal to the Executive. Thank you.
Colleagues, any comment? Thank you. There is therefore one recommendation. Is that agreed? 13 is the Wisley and Godalming CROWNPITS Conservation Area Appraisals on page 93 to 160. So quite a comprehensive report here. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Leader. This is a fairly standard authorisation for the consultation on these reports, which, as you say, are extensive and in the in this executive paper. So both Whitley and Godalming CROWNPITS are the two areas that are stated here. I think the Whitley one is the first one, and Godalming CROWNPITS starts further down, I think on about, where is page 133. The consultation, both of these area appraisals and the management plans for both areas. The consultation is set for about 6 weeks. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Any comments, please? Councillor Taylor-Smith.
Thank you. I'm one of the members for Whitley. I think the document, the conservation area appraisal, is very sensible in relation to Whitley, and I very much support the process of looking again at our conservation areas in Whitley and making them appropriate to what is there now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? No. One recommendation. Is that agreed? Item 14 is the review of the parliamentary polling districts and polling places 2014. An item similar to this has been before us before, but there are a couple of extra items now included here on page 161, 162. You will see that a polling place has been found in place of Grayswood Infant School in Grayswood Village Hall, Hazelmere. The other venue that was looked at was not suitable, and therefore St Peter's School is to be advised that it's not been possible to find an alternative polling place. Two recommendations. Are they agreed? Agreed. Thank you. 15 is the Joint Planning Committee, the appointment of substitutes. There is a paper on this on 163 to 166, and the recommendations are set out therein. Due to the number of sittings and quite often the Joint Planning Committee having to be changed for a number of reasons, we need to maintain a reasonable number on that. So it is suggested and proposed that we make all members of area committees who are not already on the Joint Planning Committee substitutes, so that if a member of a committee, of the Joint Committee, gives an apology, then a substitute may be called from that area committee on which that member serves, and from the same political group, so that we stay well within the rules. So this is just to give us a robust membership of the Joint Planning Committee. I think last year it only met once or twice, and this year it's met many more times. Any comments, please? Councillor Taylor-Smith.
Thank you. I think this is a very sensible change to tackle sometimes poor attendance at joint planning meetings. Can I just understand, I'm not entirely clear how the substitute process works, and whether and how a substitute comes about. Does the person who's declining attendance at the meeting, is it then, do they find the substitute, or does the committee services find a substitute? And are they from the same political grouping, or is it? We've never had politics in these matters.
Thank you. It will be as with any substitutes. The member will apologise to Democratic Services, and they will call from the same area. So if a member of Central Planning area who is on the joint apologises, then one of the substitutes from the central area will be called. And it will be from the same political grouping, because within the regulations issued by government and the percentages, the number of each party on the committee is set by the regulations. So to stay within that, if a member of one group apologises, somebody from the same group on that area must be called. That stays within the regulations. Thank you. Any other comment? Is that agreed? The next one is a request, number 16, is a request for an overview and scrutiny subcommittee. I set out. Councillor King.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. I'd just like to comment on this one. I think it would be a very useful topic for a subcommittee to look at. It's a big subject, and it's quite complex, and I think it will need quite considerable time to take to do the amount of in-depth work that would be needed to come to some sensible conclusion. As a result of this, I would suggest that this subcommittee delays its formation, perhaps until the next administration, when they would have much more time to be able to carry out the sort of work that needs to be undertaken. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very sensible suggestion. There's a seconder for that. Thank you. Any other comments? So, I'll put it, the proposal is that this be formed, but in the next administration after the election. Is that agreed? Thank you. Executive Director's actions?
Leader, 2 actions under this category. The first, item 17.1, allowed environmental health officers to urgently serve notice relating to private water supplies. The second one relates to an affordable housing opportunity in Farnham, which was reported to the Executive and Council in October. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Is that noted? Thank you. There are no other items on the agenda. That brings this evening's meeting to a close. Thank you.